Welcome to my channel. Here I share my learnings and views on Agile, innovation, technology, and leadership in general.
Hey Lena and Sarah. As our meeting with the infrastructure folks is postponed, I wonder if we could use this time to talk about the topic that both of you wanted to know more about?
That's a good idea. I would be happy to do that. What do you think, Lena?
Why not? I am eager to learn more about theory of constraints today.
The theory of constraints is a management philosophy, developed by Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt in the 1980s. It's a methodology for identifying and removing the constraints that limit an organization's ability to achieve its goals.
That sounds interesting. Can you give us an example of how it works in practice?
Sure. Let's say a manufacturing plant is producing a product, and the bottleneck is the machine that processes the raw material. If the machine can only process a certain amount of raw material per hour, then it limits the overall production of the plant. The theory of constraints would focus on optimizing the machine's efficiency to remove that bottleneck and increase production.
I get it. Basically, it is about identifying and then removing the bottlenecks that limit performance. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. But it's not just about removing bottlenecks. It also involves optimizing the entire system to achieve the organization's goals.
Can you explain that a bit more?
The theory of constraints involves following high-level steps. Step 1, identify the constraint. Step 2, exploit the constraint. Step 3, subordinate everything else to the constraint. Step 4, elevate the constraint. And finally, start the process over.
Can you explain those steps in more detail?
Here are the key elements of Step 1 in identifying constraints. First, we need to identify the system to be optimized. Then we have to define a measurable goal. Once a goal has been defined, we can identify the constraints. As there could be more than one constraints, we should then prioritize the constraints. And after that we define a plan.
And what happens in the second step of exploiting the constraint?
It involves finding ways to maximize the utilization of the constraints. And this could be done by aligning resources and minimizing disruptions and breakdowns. The ultimate goal is to ensure that the constraint is being utilized to its fullest potential.
And then you subordinate everything else to the constraint?
Yes. Everything else in the system is adjusted to support the constraint. For example, if the constraint is a machine that processes raw material, then the organization would adjust the rest of the production line to match the machine's output.
And what happens as a part of the fourth step, which involves elevating the constraint?
The fourth step is to elevate the constraints. This step focuses on increasing the capacity of the constraint to ensure that it is no longer the limiting factor in the system. This involves investing in new equipment or technology. It involves improving the skills of employees or outsourcing work to increase capacity. The goal of this step is to eliminate the constraint altogether or to move it to a less critical part of the system.
And then you start the process over?
Yes. Once the constraint has been elevated, the organization needs to go back to the beginning and identify the new constraint in the system. Thus, the process is continuous and ongoing.
That sounds like a very systematic approach. The theory of constraints is a very methodical and structured approach to improving an organization's performance.
I am thinking as to how theory of constraints can be applied in software development scenario.
Let me try to relate and answer this. The first step is to identify the constraint in the software development process. This could be a particular tool, or technology, or even a specific team member, or a process that is slowing down the entire development process. The next step is to exploit the constraint by focusing all resources on supporting it. For example, if a team member is the constraint, their workload could be reduced, or other team members could support them. The third step is to subordinate everything else to the constraint. In this step, all other processes and activities should be aligned to support the constraint. This could include prioritizing incoming work, reducing the work in progress, and optimizing the use of other tools and technologies. And in the fourth step, the constraint could be elevated by investing in new technology, increasing the capacity of team, or outsourcing work to free up capacity. For example, if a tool is the constraint, investing in a more powerful tool could increase the capacity of the software development process. I guess I could relate it well to the software development scenario.
Very well done, Sarah. Thank you for putting it so neatly across.
I agree. I can see that both of you have got the essence of theory of constraints. Let us get back to our work now. I need to prepare for my next meeting.
If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please hit that subscribe button now. And share your views and suggestions so that we can do a better job next time. Thank you.